that gets said so often is people don't change. If there were someone who were more skeptical, do you have a response to that?
If you were to perceive things that way, then that's how it would be for you. If you've decided people don't change, then they don't. I will say I'm living proof that they do, but that it starts with you. I am the queen of the 180 when it comes to people. I have seen all the different versions of people, and I've seen where they're reflecting me based on the story I'm telling about them. And for better or worse, I've seen all of it with my husband, with my friends, with my in-laws, with my children. Even I've seen them showing up a certain way and then me making a different choice on how I'm perceiving them, and then they show up that way, which is totally different.
Okay, everyone, it is my pleasure to introduce to you Courtney Stephenson. Now, some people might consider it slightly embarrassing to make friends online, but actually, for me, it's where I meet most of my friends. On occasion, over the years, as I scroll through social media, I will recognize someone instantly and I will know we are already friends. Often they recognize me the same way, sometimes it takes a little longer, but that is what happened the moment I first saw Courtney. I thought, I love this woman, I want to drink margaritas with her in an American bar. And although I like the occasional margarita, that is not a typical affair in my world. One night, feeling exceptionally brave, I sent her a message on Instagram asking if she'd like to be featured on my non-existent podcast, and she responded almost immediately to say yes. As a content creator and coach with over 40,000 followers, I was so touched by her openness to me. So much so that I began messaging a lot of other people I admire to invite them into my non-existent podcast, and then some of them also said yes. I feel that is a great example of what her influence can bring to your world: expanded possibility. Courtney is a manifestation teacher specialized in supporting women with their looks, confidence, careers, and, most interestingly for our purposes, to manifest a specific person. Yes, that means to focus upon a chosen person and manifest that they behave differently, that your dynamic with them changes, or that they become magnetized towards you. She's been very successful in that domain, manifesting her husband and many others by training herself internally over several years. I'm so delighted to showcase her story for you here.
I've told so many of my friends about this phenomenon of SP manifestation since I first discovered it, which after learning about manifestation from Abraham Hicks, 14, 12 years ago, really surprised me because, of course, they say you can't manifest for other people. When I came across this phenomenon on TikTok, because I had never been on TikTok, I found you, I found all these other people. And at first, I think I'd heard something about it when I had my last breakup. There were all these kind of adverts, do you want him back? Because they got me.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, of course. What kind of idiot wants their ex back, right? I don't need to re-manifest that problem. But then watching you guys at first, I was like, no, no, no. You were meant to get back together, you got back together. And then I'm just a little investigator, and I was really taken by the quantity of stories. And then it just makes so much sense once you see what's being done. And at the same time, I had sort of judgments about manifestation, especially being European. We're very weight of the world on our back, history, life is hard, right? And it does tend to be kind of joyful, easygoing Americans who are like, you can have anything you want. So it's like, yeah, really easy to dismiss.
That
And
is so funny.
I know. So my intention is a little bit to grill you because I'm totally into it. I love everything you're saying, but everyone I've told, they just stare at me in total disbelief. They want to believe me, but they're like, this can't be real.
Well, you know what? I've done that with my friends. So when I first got into manifestation myself, my friends looked at me like I had five heads and like, what the hell are you talking about? I decided everyone is unconditionally supportive of me. They're proud of me. They see that I love what I do. They see that I'm passionate about these concepts and I'm helping people and all this stuff. And I've just decided that nobody thinks it's weird. It's more normalized now, which it is more so now than it used to be. And I'm telling you, the same is so weird. The same people that used to look at me like, yeah, okay, Courtney, whatever, are the people now saying certain things and they're getting it and they're kind of waking up to consciousness themselves. I'll have people ask me about manifestation or astrology or whatever. And I'm like, this is wild to me because 5 years ago, y'all were the same ones going, what? You know what I mean? So be encouraged about that because that might not always be the case with people thinking that it's weird because I do feel like it is becoming more normalized, but also you have the power in your reality as well to be like, well, you know, my friends get it. They get it more and more every day and they don't think it's weird and they're supportive of me and whatever the hell I want to talk about.
I love it. I love it. It's so trippy, also, this discussion of reality that opens up. So I think we will start with a kind of little interest in where you come from. You come from the middle of nowhere in Georgia,
I do.
and you
Yeah, I
moved
do.
around a lot as a kid.
I don't really have a hometown or a place that I'm from. I'm kind of from like all over South Georgia. You know, people hear my accent is pretty thick Southern accent, but the town that I grew up, I'm not technically from there. But it's funny because I just ended up there when my family was from somewhere else, and it was in the middle of nowhere, and it's not far from where I live now. I'm in Savannah, Georgia, but my husband, my specific person that I manifested, right? His mother was my second grade teacher. And I didn't know him at the time, but I remember seeing him sitting outside her classroom door when we were kids, and he's a year older than me. And it's weird because we knew of each other growing up. We had lots of mutual friends. We would see each other at events or parties or whatever, but we went to different schools. But our lives kind of intermingled, but we lived like these parallel lives, but we never knew each other. But then
Mm.
we came together later. And so if someone would have told me that would have been the unfolding of my life, and then even more so after I learned about these concepts that I teach now, that he would be such a huge part of like literally my entire life, right? But for me, what that signals is everything is you and nothing is separate or disconnected from you. And so yeah, I grew up with a lot of like religious themes. My parents weren't super religious, but there was a lot of childhood trauma there that was kind of like passed down to me, limiting beliefs, fear, toxic relationship patterns, and things of that nature.
That's extra interesting about your specific person being there in your childhood. I
Yeah.
love that. Didn't know that. I think then, just to be clear for the recording, we have someone who has achieved various goals that we're going to hear about. But just to be clear, Courtney, was your childhood difficult? Did you have a hard time growing up?
Absolutely, yes. My mom was a drug addict. She was
Mm.
extremely smart. I would be willing to bet she's on the spectrum, somewhere on the spectrum. She was insanely like genius level smart. She had a lot of trauma from her childhood and her parents as well. So my childhood was very unstable. My parents got divorced when I was 2, and I had like step parents and things. So there was like some abandonment stuff going on and some neglect stuff and some, substance issue stuff with my parents. And then what I internalized was, rejection, abandonment, being blamed for things that weren't my fault as a child, being shamed a lot. My childhood was like a prison in a lot of ways, and I lived like a double life. Like I was really good in school. I had friends. Had activities. I danced. I did cheerleading, and on the outside, it looked like things were fine, but internally and at home, it was a totally different story. And I would hide that. Like I was embarrassed by it. I was embarrassed by my parents. I was embarrassed by what my life was. And so eventually I was able to kind of break free from that. But then all the stuff I had internalized, I took with me.
Love it. I like the receipts. Okay, so they're on the table now.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, I could go on and on, but we'll
Yeah,
leave it there.
thank you. And so With all of that, you're moving through life, and you've already mentioned this person who you knew of in your childhood. How did you come then to be in a relationship with your specific person in the first instance?
One of my college girlfriends who actually went to church with my husband at the time was like, "Hey, do you remember him?" She was like, "Well, I think you two would hit it off." A couple months after that, she set us up on a date and everything just kind of went from there and we really hit it off. And I think we were both just ready at that time to find someone. And we ended up getting married. We were married for like 4 years, did a lot of traveling, and then we had our first child. And after I had my second child was when I had my spiritual awakening. She didn't sleep. She had a lot of acid reflux. Every time we would lay her down, she would cry. She would scream and cry, and she barely ever slept. And when she did sleep, she was on me. And so I kind of never got a break. And so I didn't really sleep either. It felt like delirium. I was just like, I'm losing my mind. Like, I am going crazy.
Did you have physical issues at the time as well?
No, it was more like a mental, psychological anxiety.
Mm.
But if you've ever seen my photos from that time, I looked a lot different. My body was holding on to a lot of stuff and it reflected it. At that time, it was more, like, I just feel like I'm losing my mind. And so I went to the doctor and she recommended meditation.
A good
And
doctor.
I'm very thankful to her because
We're going for a body decode insert here. So I'd like to make a quick mention, first of all, that the role of motherhood is for so many women where they are initiated into higher consciousness and drastic life changes. Many, many times I've seen that pathway includes dis-ease of some sort, which calls their attention inwards. The other quick note is that what's so evident in newborns is that they are for several months absolutely still a part of the mother's body and energetic system, so that when they are ill, it always speaks to the mother's experience. And actually, as we expand into unity awareness, which we'll come to talk about later, we can see how all family members, all pets and other people in our environment are actually reflecting something to us through their physical state as well as our dynamic with them. So when it comes to anxiety, I always ask clients, where physically is the resonance? Because with a term like that, it does not account for the individual experience, which is always different. I love to hear of allopathic professionals inclined to say, meditate, don't medicate, especially because most of them don't necessarily know that we can self-heal almost everything. In my work, self-healing and training others to do the same, I've seen over and over how all disease is really a matter of consciousness, an invitation to expand ours and understand ourselves more deeply so that we can better navigate this reality we live in. For example, anxiety more connected to worry or felt and experienced alongside symptoms in the stomach, pancreas, spleen, or even generally in the digestive tract is slightly different from anxiety more connected to a sense of shock or fear. It might be more connected to the kidneys. Very often people describe that their anxiety is really felt in their chest, and it can have to do then with the organ of the heart or the lungs. Very often it is the lungs, it's the breath that gets taken away. And it's interesting to know then that in traditional Chinese medicine, the lungs are connected to the emotion of grief, which is very often suppressed and not conscious. So things like traditional Chinese medicine and other frameworks for looking at the body can help us to decode what's really taking place inside of us and what our consciousness is asking for. But generally, meditation and being prepared to look inwards is such a step in the direction of healing, also known as awakening. And well, there is a lot more involved than may initially meet the eye, because everything conspires to support our awakening when we're willing to open to it.
That kind of like set me on a path of awakening. I started meditating. I started feeling a lot better. And one day I was on my maternity leave. I turned on Netflix and I was just called to watch this movie called The Secret. And I, right. And I was like, oh my God, I actually feel like I get what they're saying. So then I learned about manifestation, got really into like crystals and tarot readings, but I still wasn't awake to the fact that everything is me, that everything's coming from me, that I am the only thinker, that my patterns and my identity and all that stuff is what's creating my experience. I didn't know that part.
So Courtney says here, it was all me. Now, listeners have probably heard it's all one thing. We are all one thing. Nothing in this earthly reality is as solid as it seems. We live scientifically in one giant energetic soup. People within that soup are not as separate as they seem. In fact, they are more like mirrors than independent actors. Now, there are many paths to achieve this level of consciousness. For me, arriving to really recognize this truth was a path of meditation, energetic training, and especially attending the real life Hogwarts and receiving guidance from inner helpers as I questioned internally how to navigate a lot of challenging relationships in my life. Courtney found the work of Neville Goddard and Law of Assumption and now teaches that. The long story short is, if you can take this matter very seriously, that we are one, and do the inner training required to embody that, or at least to check, could this be true? You'll find the depths of ancient wisdom, which says your relationships are not here to provide only comfort or ease. They are here to wake you up. Essentially, nobody is against you. Nothing is. Not really. When you feel that way, it's actually an opportunity to expand your consciousness. And that can sound like a bold claim. Before you write it off, listen to the results that can come through when the seeming magic of life is my mirror is carried into daily living. I will say this is a more advanced stage of awakening and spiritual embodiment, and even people with a lot of spiritual or energetic practice may not have undertaken it so far.
At that time, I still had all these old stories of my husband that came from my stepfather, who I projected that onto him. Our relationship was never toxic or abusive or any of that stuff. There was not like abandonment stuff there with him. My stepfather was there physically and he loved me and he provided for me, but he also wasn't emotionally supportive or present with me, and he was checked out a lot. And so that was what my marriage became. I didn't realize that the stories I was telling about my husband, like he doesn't pay attention to me and he's emotionally unavailable. Really, I was emotionally unavailable to myself. I didn't know that at the time. And so I decided I wanted to get out of that marriage because I thought I had changed so much and he's not changing with me.
Yes, this is a classic, Courtney. I see this all the time. I'm going to slow down here for a moment. Well, the way I see it, the feminine is leading the masculine in the collective awakening, right? We're all masculine, feminine, but generally speaking, that boils down to women going ahead at the spiritual level for the collective. We need this memo to get out because this exact patterning of not only the breakdown of existing partnership or relationship, but the rejection of the man who can't keep up. I'm so advanced, this kind of
oh my God, yes. That's exactly what I thought at that time.
But it's happening so often, so this is so great to highlight, and for your honesty here, also because of what's coming. The, in a way, sort of entitlement and arrogance of the feminine sort of passing as like, I'm an it girl. I've sorted my life out and now I'm single and now I have all the things I want. We can go out there and sort of make it on our own as independent women, and still the pain that we then carry is sometimes not addressed. So there are a lot of people I know who really are genuinely happy alone, happy with their big house and all their money and their nice clothes, and you know, I don't want a man, but there maybe is this hint of I haven't healed that. I'm not over it. I don't like men. I reject that aspect of life entirely. So please could you describe what you went through in breaking up your marriage, how you came to, also I want to hear the moment you discovered specific person manifestation, what led you to follow that?
Oh my goodness. It was such a journey. And looking back on it now, I see why it all happened the way it did. But exactly what you're saying, I thought I'm so enlightened now. I'm totally different. And he doesn't get it, all this stuff. I was like, it's him, it's not me. Little did I know it was all coming from me. And I was continuing to say things about him and project these stories onto him, like he is this or that, and he treats me like chopped liver, and he doesn't help me with the kids, and he's not attentive, and he's blah, blah, blah.
I just paused you there for a second. Just checking again. Little European brain
Yeah.
over here. Is this woman saying that she was walking around saying all of these things internally? Because you said a few times I was telling all these stories.
Yeah.
Were you consciously telling these stories that he's just like my stepdad and he's just like that? Or was this something more subconscious?
I mean, I was saying these things out
You were.
loud, but I wasn't conscious to the fact that I was creating that, or I was choosing that narrative. And so I wasn't awake to the fact that I could change that at any time, and it's all just subjective. What was put on me through my experience as a child wasn't automatically my truth. It was someone else's truth. It was stuff that I internalized and took on as true, but it didn't have to be my truth. But at that time, I didn't know all of that. And so I just thought, this is just how he is. And so this is why I have to leave. So we separated, and we were like 5 minutes away from each other, and we were co-parenting. At this time, he was really upset about it. He didn't want me to leave. He didn't want to break up the marriage. He wanted to keep us together and our kids together. And I remember him just begging me, please just come live with me and the girls. Just come and we'll just work it out. I was like, no.
A heads up for you listeners, Courtney is about to give you a stunning example of push-pull dynamics in her story. Energetically, this is really a matter of magnetism. The movement of masculine and feminine energies inside us is ultimately responsible for these dynamics of the so-called runner and chaser in our partnership dynamic. And it's not, therefore, what psychology often concludes. So for anyone interested in attachment styles, etc., her example here is going to demonstrate what is really happening as these push-pull dynamics play out, as well as what is really possible beyond such limiting definitions that we are used to in the realm of conventional relationship advice.
But I dated someone else, and during that time for several months, that ended up being the train wreck that really woke me up, to be honest, because I ended up repeating those same exact patterns that I was complaining about with my marriage with that person, but it was even worse. I was carrying this identity before of the martyr victim, the mother archetype thing, where it's all the burdens on me. I'm in the masculine energy. I have to do everything. A man won't help me. All of this stuff. That was my identity. And so this person came in, and almost like they became my third child. I was like, why am I repeating this same stuff, even worse, with this new person? And so that kind of got me thinking, okay, maybe this is something within me that needs to change. Maybe the common denominator here is me, because like, why is this happening?
Do you remember the moment that that occurred to you?
I realized at a certain point in that relationship with that other person, I'm worth more than this, basically. I think I just got so angry in the situation that I was like, you know what? Get out. Bye. I'm done with you. I got to choose me. I eventually came to the conclusion I'm actually the great one. Why am I putting this person on a pedestal? Why am I putting their needs over mine? Why am I doing more for them than I'm doing for me? It made me angry. I got to the point of being angry and resentful. And I was like, you know what? I'm doing this anymore. I'm going to choose me. So I cut that person out of my life as if they didn't exist. And they were like really upset about it and mad about it. But then as I started to wake up more and more, choose myself, focus on myself, start loving myself, they came around later and was like, I'm so sorry that I was so selfish. At that point, I was like, I don't care. I still choose me. Like, it was the best thing that ever happened to me. In that time, though, the interim of when I cut that relationship out and started to reflect on myself and choose myself more, because that was so bad and so much worse, what my marriage was, that I started to miss him and I started to see him more favorably because the other one was so awful. And leading up to that point, he still was upset about the fact that we weren't together and he wanted me back. But then the tables turned as I started once again looking at him more favorably now and starting to put him on a pedestal now and being like, oh no, I screwed up. Now I want him back. He went from wanting me back for like the year and a half and being sad about it to being like, I don't even want you to touch me. I don't like, I would come over here and he wouldn't even look at me.
Sorry, I'm laughing.
No, it is funny. Like I look back on it now and I do laugh. I really do laugh. But like, or he would say stuff like, I'm not trying to get back together with you. I don't even want to be alone with you without the kids there. All this stuff as I was chasing his ass. You know what I mean? And I was like, can we get back together? Can we get back together? I was like the pick me girl. I was desperate. That was my mentality at that time. And I was the one who was sad. And then he, because I put all my focus on him, started glowing up and getting better, and going to the gym and looking good and going on dates and all this stuff. And I was like, oh, okay, because I put all my focus on him. He was glowing up and I had self-abandoned. Once again, had self-abandoned and put the man on the pedestal and put them more important than above me. It was like a double whammy at that time that really woke me up to Courtney, you got to choose yourself once and for all. You got to love you once and for all. You got to fulfill yourself. You got to make yourself safe. The situation got so dire and my circumstances got so uncomfortable that I didn't even have any friends anymore. I got alienated all my friends. I didn't have him. I didn't have a partner. I wasn't getting what I wanted, to the point that there was nothing left for me to do but to start focusing on myself and doing something different. And so that's exactly what happened. And so it just kind of catalyzed me to be self-reflective and to go internal. I've just got to choose myself. I've got to focus on me. I've got to source all of these things that I'm seeking outside of myself within me. I've got to validate me. I've got to love me. And I've got to start telling better stories about myself. I started pulling my focus back to me. Like every time my mind would wander to him, I'd bring it back to me. I would affirm for me. I would validate me. I would regulate my own nervous system instead of reaching out to him for reassurance. I just stopped reaching out to him and I stopped focusing on him. And I just decided to make it all about me for once in my life. And that is the best thing I ever did for myself. It changed my whole freaking life. It led me to the work that I do. It led me to the things that I've created. It just set me on a path of all these things. And I'm so grateful for that time. At the time, I thought that my life had burned to the ground, but really it's the best thing that ever happened to me. And I'm so thankful for it now. But as I started doing that and really seeing everything really is a mirror to me, everything comes down to me, my identity, how I'm loving me and speaking to me, and whether I'm choosing me or thinking about me, like that's what everything is reflecting. And it's been reflecting me the whole time. And I looked back on all these relationships and all these experiences, and I can really pinpoint that's why that happened that way, because that's what I was doing. It was reflecting me in the stage where I was still kind of sad about it, but I was trying to pull myself out of it in regards to him and the whole situation. I went on a cruise with my girlfriends and I was sad the whole time. And I was just like, we're not together and all this stuff. And I'll never forget my friend being like, you need to snap out of it. And then I got home from that cruise and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to really go all in for myself because that's all I can do. And that's when the table started turning back around. He started reaching back out to me again. He started being nicer to me again. He started showing up more preferable to me again. And then it just kind of all unfolded from there. But I also made the decision, I'm not going to be this person anymore. I'm not going to be a martyr victim. I'm going to focus on me. I'm going to love me the most. I'm going to have the healthiest relationship with myself that I can possibly have. And I also decided we're back together and we're going to give it another chance and we're going to make it work. We're going to be happier and better than we've ever been. And the rest of it's kind of history.
Whew, love it.
It's a
Okay.
lot.
Well,
It's a lot.
it is a lot. And you know what was really fun? As you were in the discussion of how everything was breaking down, and then all of a sudden your friendships are in the loneliness, the whole screen was kind of getting crumbly and you were freezing. I don't know if it'll happen in the recording, but as soon as you started to say, and then I realized I focus on myself, the the picture came back and crystallized and has stayed with you there. So
That is
that
so
says a lot
funny.
too, doesn't it?
I mean, that's really, and I tell my clients this all the time. That's the most important relationship that you'll ever have is the one that you have with you. And so everything that I thought was outside of me or separate from me actually is not. It's not separate. I could never be disconnected from any of it or anyone or anything. And this entire experience is the reflection of my internal dialogue, essentially. And so that's what I learned how to kind of reverse engineer. It really taught me how to break relationship patterns in the sense of I've got to have the best relationship with me. And that's how I've been able to have really good, healthy relationships now with other people, because I've been able to maintain that for myself, which I never had before. So I started speaking to myself the way that I wanted others to, and doing for myself the way that I wanted others to. Instead of seeking it externally, I started giving it all to myself. And that was a really magical time in my life because I was kind of falling in love with myself in a way for the first time ever.
Beautiful. So the sort of tagline for this podcast is you are the love of your life. So that reflects pretty well, perhaps, your experience there too. I am curious about this integrative process of, you said there, okay, everything's breaking down. He's gone, the friendships are breaking down, I'm alone, and so there's nothing else to do. And the kind of genius design inside of that, if our relationships are here to wake us up and if everyone else is running away, the reflection there of our own self-avoidance. I wonder as well, as you were gaining your strength and your direction back and things are starting to go better, did you take any more hits of challenges as you went through that process, or was it all completely smooth and easy?
It definitely didn't feel easy at the time. And there were some little things that popped up along the way that I felt kind of tested my faith, or however you want to say it. But ultimately, at that time, things had already gotten so uncomfortable that I was the only one left. And so the only thing left for me to do was to look at me and to sit with me and to be with me. I had to learn I'm the only one that can validate me. I'm the only one that can choose me right now. And I'm the only one that can be the source of my own fulfillment, which we are anyway. As I'm kind of realizing all of this, that this is all coming from me. I am the source of all of this, and all of these things that I have been saying about myself, or the way that I've been perceiving myself and treating myself, is just something that wasn't my choice. It was put on me when I didn't know any better. Now that I know what I know, I can't fault myself for what I didn't know when I didn't know it. So I've got to wipe the slate clean, and I've got to be able to let the past go. That was really freeing for me. I sat down with myself one day and I was like, okay, how do I perceive myself? Who do I think I am? And it didn't look good. It wasn't preferable to me. I was like, I don't want to be this. I don't want to think of myself this way. And so I made a new choice. Like, okay, how do I want it to be? Who do I want to be? I kind of just decided I'm going to say this to myself until it becomes my identity, until I believe it, until my mind just is on board with it. As my own identity changed and the way that I perceive myself, it was a lot easier to perceive others differently too. It was easier for me to stop looking at myself like a victim, and it was easier for me to stop looking at other people as perpetrators. So even the uncomfortable things, even the negative looking things, I was so in my power at that time, and I was so bold of conviction in what I had chosen that nothing could mess me up. Even though I had feelings about certain things, I still was just like, no, I've decided, and nothing can stop me.
And this is the work that you are supporting women with these days,
Yeah.
right? For
Yeah.
quite some years already.
Exactly.
And I'm not going into particular questions about the how to, because you share so generously all over TikTok and Instagram, and there are so many more stories that I would love to share with you here, but that people can access on there as well. But I do have a question just on behalf of any listener who has never heard of specific person manifestation. I'm thinking of people who are in marriages and just kind of, it's okay, it's good, we know how tiring it can be to raise kids, and the kind of status quo of this is just how it is. Is there anything you would say to them in particular around this topic of victimhood? Because so often people want to, okay, obviously they might not be listening to this podcast, but maybe they're like, but in my circumstance, I really am a victim. He really does treat me this way, and I don't want to lie about it, especially I get a lot of the time, I don't want to spiritually bypass. Is there anything that you could offer to someone who has that comment to make right now?
I mean, I get that because I've been there too. And at a certain point, I had to come to the conclusion that I've never been a victim, actually. Spiritual bypassing, I feel like that's the ego. Or even when I say things to people like, you're the source of everything, everything is your manifestation. And well, am I going to blame myself for what I've experienced? No, that's your ego trying to do that. That's that human side of you that once again wants to make you a victim, but the higher consciousness part of you is not looking at it that way. All of this has actually been pointing you to know yourself deeper and to wake up to yourself as source. And so there is no judgment in that, and there is no pointing fingers in that. You know what I mean? There's only awareness. I can look in the face of these circumstances or these other people and go, no, that's not my truth. And that's not who I am. Now that I have more context of awareness for knowing that I can choose a different perspective at any time, no matter what it's been before in the past, that's freedom. That's ultimate freedom to go, just because this is how it was, that doesn't mean that that's what I have to choose for myself now. And I don't have to blame myself for how it played out when I didn't know any better. So now that I do, I'm just going to make a different choice.
I love it. Okay, and there's then a reflection needed because I don't think we've captured it quite yet so far. What was really the change in your relationship to your husband? If you compare, for example, before the marriage ended and then now how things are, so we can hear what's
Yeah,
possible.
absolutely. So he was always pretty distant with me emotionally, which is why I used to say he's emotionally unavailable. At that time, he wasn't very attentive, didn't help me very much around the house, didn't help with the kids, stuff like that. And we didn't really have an emotionally supportive relationship. We didn't really talk about things. It was very surface level. Also, I would choose him over me in a lot of contexts. And so, of course, he would choose him over me because it's a mirror. All that stuff. That's how it was before. And I realized I'm not speaking to myself kindly. I'm not fulfilling my own need for myself. I'm not making my own self safe. I'm not speaking, treating, emotionally supporting, even sitting with myself emotionally or anyway at all. And so I have no relationship with self. I don't even think about myself. Like I have self abandoned. And that's what I realized. People ask me all the time, how do you even focus on yourself? Well, if you catch your mind centering that other person more than you think of yourself and your own needs, then that's it. So I started small, retraining my mind to focus and think more about myself. I'm going to sit with myself. I'm going to give myself what I need. I'm going to speak to myself the way I would want someone else to speak to me. I'm going to hold myself in a high regard. I'm not going to shame or judge myself. I'm going to treat myself like I would treat that other person or like I would treat my child's self. And so how that plays out now is as I started being more self-focused, he started focusing more on me. As I started to lean back, relax into safety, he started to initiate more. I stopped reaching out. He started reaching out to me. I'm all about me. He's turned towards me. I'm relaxing into my feminine energy. I'm in joy. I'm creativity. I'm in flow. He's the one initiating and stepping up in the masculine energy. He's focusing on me and I'm doing all of this for me. Like nowadays, anytime I find myself seeking something from him, I have to remind myself, wait, he can't give me that. I've got to give me that. So if I need to be validated right now, I'm going to validate me. I can sit with my own emotions. I can make myself safe in this moment. I can speak to myself in a way that makes me feel good. I don't need him to give me words of affirmation. I can give that to myself. We communicate more now. We have a more emotional depth in the relationship, and it's a lot safe and healthier and all around. Like the way he treats me, he never raises his voice to me. He's always very considerate. He helps me. He does a lot with the kids. He does a lot with the house. And none of that was the case before. Nowadays, I would never say out loud or to myself, oh, he treats me like chopped liver. No, he doesn't. He's very doting. He's very attentive. He treats me like a queen. All those old stories just kind of fell away as I started to reflect on myself more. And as my identity up leveled, our relationship up leveled. I'm very
And
long winded. Sorry.
No, I feel you're very, very generous and you're such a teacher. In everything you put out, there's always such a sense of how much you want people to have this information. So thank you. I really enjoy listening. Another thing I see a lot of in especially dating and partnership and, the feminine, also on TikTok, is this evidence of kind of anger and resentment, like you discovered in yourself towards the masculine in your life. Is there any message you would have for how to manage that energy? Because some women are off there like beating up their pillow, trying to release it that way. Other people are paying a lot of money to go on retreats. How did you process it? Or what would you invite people to look into there?
I used to scream into pillows.
Did you find it useful?
At the time I did,
Yeah.
I mean, at the time I did. Nowadays, I feel like it really comes down to an identity thing, truly. When you can remember that you are bigger than all of that, you are not, I'm not Courtney, right? I am the awareness behind her. When I realized that it was all coming from me, it kind of set me free away to almost laugh at it because it made me realize they really did have no choice but to show up that way. It's not like they wanted to. They weren't trying to hurt me. They weren't trying to do anything to me, but they had no choice but to show up reflecting the identity that I was holding at the time and the stories I was telling at the time. And so the reason why there's nothing to change but self and realizing that it is all coming from you, it actually gives you the power back to change it, which kind of allows the anger or resentment to dissipate. Because if I can look and see that I am the root cause of all of this, not in a way where I'm blaming myself or judging myself. Once again, that's an ego thing. I started seeing more and more that I am not a victim. And so I stopped looking at other people through the lens of being a perpetrator. Like, this person has no power over me. In fact, they have no power at all in my reality. Everything's me, everything's coming from me. And so now that I'm choosing a different perspective, they're going to show up differently automatically. And it's kind of like me proving it to myself. They didn't want to do that. They just didn't have a choice. I have all the power here and it sets me free. So I can let the anger go and the resentment because it's not like they wanted to do that to me. I was doing that to me and I didn't know it. So now that I know, I can change.
Yes. Very
Yes.
good. Excellent answer. Thank you. You really are just like, you're like, how much can I stuff into one response? It's so thorough what you offer. So thank you again. Next question is, how can people work with you and have access to this on the regular?
I'm everywhere. I'm TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, but the majority of my content is on TikTok. I offer workshops, courses. My Wish Fulfilled workshop is the exact process that I used at the time of what we've been talking about to shift my identity and manifest my specific person. But I also offer one-to-one coaching as well if you want something more personalized and tailored to you and your specific situation, then I offer that as well. It's not all relationship based. That is the bulk of what my clients come to me for. But I also every now and then will do career, health, appearance. It's for everything.
Nothing is untouched, right, by this work. Then my final question, unless you have something to add, is, Courtney, for you, what would you say in your world is love?
Oh my goodness. Love is everything. Love is you. Love is really all that exists because everything else is a limitation. At the bottom of everything, at the end of the day, at the core of all of it, it's love. I don't really know how to answer that.
Beautiful. That was the shortest answer.
Oh my God.
Very succinct and easy one there. Thank you so much. Thank you for your generosity. Thank you for your passion. And I think it's so wonderful that so many of us have access to you in all these different ways. And yeah, I wish you all the best with everything that you're up to. Thank you for
Thank you so much. I feel honored. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
This has been fun.